This is 9 News at 5.
Good afternoon from the heart of Adelaide. Normally it would be bustling right now, but already so many have gone home where they've been ordered to stay for the next 7 days from 6 o'clock tonight. It comes after 2 new COVID cases were detected today, including one that authorities fear may signal a super spreader event. Harvey Biggs has all these details. Harvey, what happens at 6 p.m?
Well, almost everything effectively comes to a grinding halt. People are being told to get to the home that they'll spend the next 7 days at as quickly and safely as possible tonight, because from 6 p.m. you'll have just 5 reasons that you can leave your home. They include if you are an essential worker, to buy essential food, urgent medical care, including getting a COVID test or for a vaccination appointment, to provide care, and exercising outdoors, but only with a member of your household. School will be closed tomorrow. It'll switch to online learning from Thursday. Weddings, funerals and elective surgery has been cancelled. We've had 2 new cases pop up in South Australia in the last 24 hours. That takes this outbreak to 5 in total. The biggest concern for authorities is this 5th case. That's a man in his 60s who tested positive after attending a birthday party at the Greek on Halifax Street on Saturday night. That is now a known exposure site. Another case was there at the same time, and authorities fear this could be a super spreader event. They're checking not just the QR code system but also CCTV and bank statements to ensure they get in contact with everyone who was there at that time. The other case that we saw today is a man in his 60s who was a family member of the original cases, the 81-year-old man and his daughter. They came back in from Argentina via Sydney on July 8. He tested positive in the Modbury Hospital in the early hours of yesterday morning. Some 57 staff in the emergency department, 9 patients and 12 paramedics are now in isolation because of that exposure. There are some 17 exposure sites across the city at the moment. That will continue to rise, and more than 1,000 people have been messaged by SA Health to say that they were at one of those exposure sites and checked in at that time. So authorities are doing everything that they can to try and stop this spread.
We have no alternative but to impose some fairly heavy immediate restrictions to take effect from 6 p.m. tonight. South Australia moves into lockdown. This is moving very quickly. We first got a positive confirmation at 2:30 a.m. yesterday, and we are moving as quickly as we can to slow and stop the spread of this particular cluster.
And we are hearing reports of a new exposure site in Adelaide's western suburbs. We'll bring you all those details at 5:30.
All right, we'll be watching. Thanks very much, Harvey. The testing clinics have been swamped today as thousands of South Australians heeded the message to get swabbed. Georgia Westgarth joins us from a new pop-up drive-through site at Ridgehaven. Georgia, what is the situation there?
Well, Will, this is the brand new pop-up testing clinic at Ridgehaven here at the Waterworld Park. It opened this morning and is already closed. It closed at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Cars have been turned away. Disgruntled people unable to get their COVID test this afternoon. But the cars behind me currently in the car park will get swabbed. If you're in the northeastern suburbs this afternoon and need to get a test, don't come to the Waterworld Park as it is closed. But there's been huge lines at testing clinics right across the city. Of course, at Victoria Park, huge wait times there, cars stretching all the way to Greenhill Road. Some people sleeping in their vehicles waiting to get swabbed, waiting some more than 8 hours. Now over at Modbury, the epicentre of this new cluster, long wait times there as well. People waking up early, getting in the queue at 6 a.m, had to wait 2 hours to get swabbed. Police were actually called to the Modbury testing clinic. Workers there believed that a man tried to push in, but police tell me that was a misunderstanding about position and direction of the line. He was swabbed and sent home. Now over at Elizabeth Park, people who were waiting there from 8 o'clock were waiting for about 5 hours, and many people caught off guard, forgetting to pack water and snacks. But despite these huge queues, Will, the turnaround time for results remains at 12 to 14 hours. SA Pathology working around the clock with 7,500 tests conducted yesterday alone.
We don't want anyone to have to queue for inordinately long periods of time, and I thank people for their patience. SA Pathology and the private pathology providers are putting as many resources as possible into each of the COVID collection sites, and we will be adding additional resources throughout today.
Now, Will, as we head into this lockdown from 6 o'clock tonight, there are 5 reasons to leave your home. One of them is to go and get a COVID test.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Georgia. Well, this lockdown will have a heavy and far-reaching impact on workers and business owners across the state, with many crying out for financial support. Edward Godfrey is at Glenelg. Edward, how's it looking there?
Well, as you'd expect, it is starting to get a little quiet here at Glenelg. Even some of the cafes and the food outlets that were open this afternoon are closing up early. We are, of course, within that last hour now before most businesses need to close due to the lockdown. It was a pretty grim situation. Even this morning in the heart of the city, the normally busy Rundle Mall was virtually deserted, under level 4 restrictions at that time. Not many businesses along the mall there meeting that essential retailer criteria. There were some cafes which had some outdoor dining which were open for business, some chemists and some eye centres, some supermarkets on the mall and on those adjacent boulevards. It was a similar situation in the suburbs. Gyms, though, they were shut, hairdressers were shut, just a handful of takeaway shops here at Glenelg open, but even the workers there, their tune changed once that lockdown was announced mid-morning. They are desperate for this lockdown to not last longer than a week, and they're calling for the same financial support that we're seeing at the moment interstate.
When you work for yourself and you rely on your income to pay your rent, your mortgage and essential bills, it's very hard.
We're hoping that we all come out the other side. And I think it probably is only going to have a negative impact if you've got people that are going under.
Victoria, New South Wales, either their state government or the federal government has swung in behind business owners during these times of grave uncertainty.
Now, Will, the Premier says he's confident that we're going to get the same sort of federal government support that Victoria and New South Wales are receiving in their lockdowns. He's also said that the State Treasurer is looking at a more local version of support for workers and businesses here. An announcement on that could be made at any moment, and we'll have the latest at 6.
Yeah, a lot of people will be waiting to hear that one. Thanks very much, Edward Godfrey. The snap lockdown will also see schools and childcare centres right across the state closed from tomorrow. Ella Duffy joins me. Ella, when exactly will home learning begin?
Well, tomorrow will be a pupil-free day with teachers given 24 hours to prepare for online learning, which is then going to begin on Thursday. And these rules apply to all schools right across the state, government schools, private schools, Christian schools, and the measures will be in place for 1 week until at least next Tuesday. There are some exceptions though. Some schools and childcare centres will operate with just a skeleton staff to care for students who are vulnerable and children of essential workers.
So there will be schools and childcare available for people that work in emergency services and also for children that are vulnerable. So there are there will be an opportunity for schools to be open in a small way, but just for that small group of children.
We've spoken to parents about how these changes are going to impact on their families. We'll have that at 6.
Okay, Ella, thanks so much. Despite the assurances from authorities, people still raced to the shops once the lockdown was announced. Let's go live to Keziah Sullivan. She's at Carolta Park. Keziah, police were watching the Coles there early.
Yes, they were, Will, and that was because of the influx of people racing to the shops once this announcement was made. In this vision, you can see police just checking on customers, making sure that they were using those QR check-ins, and then they made their way through the store, urging people to put on their masks and if they didn't have one, to buy one. And it didn't take long for lines to snake around the store here in Carolta Park. Staff had to set up out the front of the store, just monitoring the large numbers that were coming in. Shelves were once again stripped bare and toilet paper was a hot ticket item. And there were similar scenes right across the city. There was large lines to get into the Woolworths at Unley. Customers had to fight to reach the checkout with long lines in store as well. Now, supermarkets are urging people not to panic buy. They say they have plenty of stock available. Coles and Woolworths have introduced limits on toilet paper though. There will only be allowed 2 packets per customer there, while Foodland says they aren't introducing any limits.
There's no toilet paper left on the shelves at the moment, so I don't know what They're silly.
And everything's open still. It's not like you're not going to, be left with nothing.
You will be able to leave home for those essential purchases like food. There is no need whatsoever for panic buying.
Well, supermarkets are also urging customers to use the QR check-in, as that will be crucial if an outbreak does occur in tracking the customers. They're also urging people to be patient and to be kind as they work through this lockdown situation.
OK, Keziah, thanks for the very latest. Well, New South Wales has seen a welcome drop in COVID cases today, with 78 new infections recorded in 24 hours. What remains a concern for authorities is the 21 people who were in the community while infectious. Here's Chris O'Keefe.
Sydney's COVID outbreak is being very, very stubborn. While the overall case number came down a little bit today, 78, the number in the community, either the entire time they were infectious or a little bit of that time, was still at 29. Now, for Gladys Berejiklian, that is far too many. She wants that number in the community almost down to 0 before she even contemplates exiting lockdown. But what we've seen is a huge number of tests in Sydney, another 63,000 over the last 24 hours. But what it means is that the wait is very, very long to get those test results back.
All of us have to be on our guard. We know there are various venues of concern all throughout Greater Sydney, but in particular those 3 local government areas are still representing more than 2/3 of all the cases, and that's why the focus remains in those communities.
We are seeing more hospitalisations, more admissions to ICU, more people on ventilators. We have to stop the spread of COVID.
Now, Premier Gladys Berejiklian is still under a huge amount of pressure over her decision to shut down the construction industry in Greater Sydney, full stop. Now, she did say today that by the 31st of July, she gives an ironclad guarantee that construction in some form will be restarted. Now, that has given some tradies to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, given that they are now currently out of work for the next 2 weeks. But nonetheless, there were long queues today at Centrelink again as people lined up for their $600 weekly payment from the federal government. But as lockdown continues to lurch on from week to week, we can be sure we'll see more of that.
The Iraqi community in Sydney's southwest is mourning a loving mother who died of COVID in her home yesterday. Saeed Shorka tested positive to the virus 3 days ago. She refused treatment in special health accommodation, instead choosing to isolate at home with her family.
You can deteriorate quite quickly with COVID. We're not dealing with a mild case of flu. It is important that we work with people with COVID to support them with the best possible care we can to ensure their best possible outcome.
Saida is the mother of the twin removalists who have been charged after allegedly travelling to regional New South Wales after testing positive to COVID. 13 new cases in Victoria and another week in lockdown. 9 of those people were isolated for their entire infectious period. Mark Santo Martino reports.
The trend is good, but we need more time. That was the message Daniel Andrews was selling as he told the entirety of Victoria this morning that we'd be spending another 7 days in lockdown.
This is a matter of days. The alternative is months.
The 5 reasons to leave home have not changed. They are essential work and shopping, medical attention, caregiving or vaccination. Home visits remain off limits.
Those family gatherings can't happen for any of us across the state right now.
Brett Sutton unwilling to gamble on today's 13 new cases, despite 9 being isolated for the entire time they've been infectious. The Chief Health Officer expecting those numbers to improve after another week in lockdown.
Expecting that will be absolutely in single figures, that there's a reasonable chance that we'll have no new individuals who are out in the community during their infectious period.
Special needs students will be allowed back into the classroom for face-to-face learning. Tradies who can work outdoors on unoccupied homes will also be allowed back.
We know that businesses and families will do it tough over these next 7 days. There'll be further announcements tomorrow.
From midnight, Victoria's border with New South Wales will officially shut. No one will be allowed in or out, even if they're willing to quarantine.
I know that's tough, that's very challenging, so too is an outbreak.
I think if the government had moved a bit quicker in relation to our New South Wales border, we may have been able to avoid the lockdown.
The only people who will continue to be allowed to come from any red zone across the country into Victoria are essential workers and those who apply on compassionate grounds to come back and complete 14 days quarantine.
One new local COVID case in Queensland has sent hundreds of people into isolation. A 20-year-old woman who caught the virus while studying in Melbourne has tested positive. She travelled to the Sunshine Coast late last week, visited a shopping centre and restaurant before flying back to Cairns. The woman was fully vaccinated and wore a mask at all times in the community. Let's take a look at traffic on the drive home now. A crash is causing delays on Morphett Road in Glengarry. Traffic is building now on Henley Beach Road in Torrensville. Slow going on Grand Junction Road in Walkley Heights, but a clear run home right now on Goodwood Road. Well, our cold and wintry weather is set to continue. Chelsea Carey joins us with the latest.
Well, a cold front rolled through Adelaide early this morning, whipping up winds and delivering some heavy showers, but conditions eased during the day. It has stayed cool though. Our top was just 13.7 degrees here in the city. Right now it's sitting on 11 and it's said to be a very chilly night, so pull out those warm socks and I'll have the full details a little later, Will.
All right, Chelsea, we'll see you soon. Next in 9 News at 5, Ash Barty touches down in Tokyo. The number of COVID cases in the athletes' village is growing. Plus, a mini tornado leaves a trail of destruction in Adelaide's northeast.